Hi, everyone. Welcome to the second week of a year of hope, dreams, and connection. This six-week webinar series is focused on providing evidence-based strategies and resources for building connections with your community and university and at home. A couple of items before we get started with our presenter. The session today will be recorded, so you can view it at a later date. It'll be posted on the website. Closed captioning is available. You just click the live transcript, I believe it says, button at the top. And for any questions that you have, please use the Q&A function. If we have time at the end, we will get to them. If not, we'll make sure they get to our presenter. And today's presentation is The Science of Hope. And our speaker for the day is Dr. Dave Feldman from UC Santa Clara. Dr. Feldman is a professor of counseling psychology who is considered one of the nation's foremost experts on hope. His research addresses how hopefulness is connected to finding meaning and experiencing resilience in the face of life-limiting medical illness, trauma, and other highly stressful circumstances. Dr. Feldman is the principal developer of a single-session hope enhancement intervention known as the Hope Workshop, which was particularly designed for undergraduate students, but has now been used for a variety of populations, including individuals with cancer and medical providers facing burnout. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Feldman.
Thank you very much for that generous introduction. And now I'm going to see if I can get the technology to work and share with you my screen. So hopefully you can see that, and I will start the slideshow here. All right, so hopefully that looks good. So thanks for inviting me here to talk with you for about a half an hour about a topic that's near and dear to my heart that I've spent the last 20 years of my life on, and that is hope. And so what I thought I would do is I would start by talking about what hope is, then share with you a little bit of the research on hope, and then get into some really practical tools for setting the conditions for hope to thrive in your life, in the lives of the people that you serve, whether that's students or clients, and also maybe in your organization and with your colleagues. So let's dig in. And if you'll permit me, I'll start at the very beginning, because hope is a very ancient concept. It exists in almost every culture going back thousands of years, including the ancient Greek culture. And here you see an ancient Greek plate depicting the myth of Pandora. So you may know that Pandora was, by myth, the first woman. And here you see the gods creating Pandora, and they gave her many gifts. They gave her the gift of creativity and intelligence and wit and charm and everything that you would want in a human being. And right before they sent her to Earth, they gave her one final gift, Pandora's famous box. And as you probably know, they also gave her a warning, which was, no matter what you do, don't open the box. Now, I don't know what you would do, but I know what I would do, which is exactly what she did. She opened the box. And according to the legend, out of the box flew all the evils that now afflict humankind: poverty and pestilence and plague and disease and evil and prejudice and hatred, all the things that we now contend with as human beings. So this is the ancient Greeks' explanation for how evil got into the world. And most people think that's where the story stops. But actually it continues, because she slams the lid shut on the box. And as she's holding the box to her, she realizes there's something still inside. So she opens the box just a little, and way in the recesses of the box, one thing remains. And that thing, of course, is hope. So for the ancient Greeks, hope was that thing, that psychological and spiritual asset that remained with humanity, remained with us, and allows us to survive and even thrive in a world that can be pretty awful. And I don't need to tell you that it can be pretty stressful and awful and traumatic, given what we've all seen the last 3 years. So the ancient Greeks really believed that hope was powerful. It was about surviving, but also thriving. It was about doing amazing things in a world that could be pretty bad. Unfortunately, I think that our world, at least our Western society, has largely lost this powerful view of hope. And I think in the last 2 millennia has sort of signed on to what I'm going to call a powerless view of hope. I think it's a fundamental misunderstanding of what hope is. And like I said, I think this is primarily Western culture, but actually I've talked to colleagues of mine in Asia as well, including in Hong Kong, in China, in mainland China, and in Thailand. And they say that this kind of powerless misunderstanding about hope is present there as well. And so I think this misunderstanding is the idea that hope is a warm, squishy feeling that we cling to when we don't know what else to do. Sometimes I call this the consolation prize definition of hope, because it's a little like a consolation prize on a game show. Like, let's say you were to go to On the Price is Right, and you were to play some of those little price guessing games, and you lose, and maybe you're the biggest loser ever on The Price is Right. And just to give you a little comfort, just to make you feel better, the host sends you home with a year's subscription to Time Magazine. Well, I don't have anything against Time Magazine, but I wanted the new car, right? So a consolation prize is a prize that you get to give you a little comfort when you really have lost. And I think that people sometimes, just anecdotally, can think of hope that way as well, as a feeling you get to have. It's not powerful. It won't solve your problems. It won't accomplish your goals. It won't change your situation. It just provides a little comfort when things really are not going your way. And this view of hope shows up everywhere in our culture. Here is a comic, Hagar the Horrible, one of my favorites. We have these 2 Vikings, hanging in a dungeon, undoubtedly going to their death. And one of them says, we're completely hopeless with no chance of escape. What in the world keeps us going? And the other one says, hope. So, in this comic, hope isn't going to set them free. It's not going to break these chains. It's not going to save their lives, solve their problems, accomplish their goals, but it is going to provide some comfort. Now, I don't have anything against comfort, and I do think that hope is incredibly comforting. But I think hope is more powerful than that. I'm going to go with the ancient Greeks and say that hope allows us to not only survive, but thrive in our sometimes pretty rotten world. And also, I'm going to make the case today that it's the engine that drives our personal goal accomplishment. And in fact, it's the engine, I think, that drives progress in our society, in our organizations, in our world. So what exactly do I think hope is? If that's what hope is not, what is hope? Well, as an empiricist, as a quantitative researcher, as a scientist, I think it's so important that we carefully operationalize and measure our constructs. And luckily, there is a model of hope that was given to the world by the great positive psychologist C.R. Snyder about 30 years ago. It's produced hundreds of studies, and it's called the hope theory model. And it's also produced a number of valid and reliable self-report measures, including the very short and easy to use adult hope scale that you might hear me refer to a few times today. And this model says that hope consists of 3 parts, 3 components: goals, pathways, and agency. And although these were originally known as the 3 components of hope, I actually think an intuitive way to understand them, particularly when you're first encountering this model, is to think of them as the 3 conditions under which hope thrives. Because it turns out when people have these 3 conditions set in their lives, they feel more hopeful. And they also have a number of other positive outcomes that we'll talk about when we get to the research. Now, I want to tell you about each of these components, but because we're a little pressed for time today, I thought it would be better for me to draw you a picture rather than try to technically define these. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw you the core of the hope theory model. Now, I do want to say in advance, this is not the full hope theory model, which is quite a lot more complex, but this is kind of the core of the model, and I think will do the trick just for today to get us on the same page. So at the start of our model, at the start of our story, here is the individual. This can be you. It can be somebody that you work with, the people you serve, students, clients, whomever. It can be anyone. And at the start of our story here, you are feeling rather hopeless. And that's because you're missing the conditions for hope to thrive. The first one of which is having goals. So a core precondition for having hope is having something to hope for. Now, usually, if you ask yourself honestly about your goals, most of our goals on a daily basis are probably things we have to do for other people, right? We have to do them for our boss. We have to do them for our spouse or our kids. But what's important for setting this first condition for hope to thrive, turns out it's to have at least one goal in our lives that's truly important to us, that's intrinsically meaningful for us. But of course, that first condition for hope to thrive isn't sufficient. You've got to have the second condition as well, which is known as pathways. So a pathway is just a way of saying a plan, a strategy, some way of getting you from where you are to your goal. And it turns out that when people feel that there is no way that they can get to their goal, they often feel hopeless. So pathways are important. And then the third condition for hope to thrive is personal agency. Agency is kind of a funky psychobabble term, but it basically means the energy, the motivation, the drive to get up off our behind and go after our goals. And if you've ever been in a situation where you've had a goal you wanted, but you couldn't find that sense of motivation, you probably felt pretty hopeless at that moment. So it turns out that when people have these three conditions set simultaneously in their life, they feel hopeful. But let's not pretend that life is this simple, right? That you have your nice goal, your pathway, your agency, and then you get there and everything's good. Life is harder than that. And life looks a little more like this. In fact, what I'm about to draw you is even an oversimplification, but it's a little more realistic. In real life, you have yourself, you have your goal, you have your pathway, your agency, and then boom, life blocks your path. Life throws you a curveball, right? As they say, shit happens, pardon my cursing. Things block our path. We've all been there. Those blockages can be other people who stand in our way. Those blockages can be something about the system, systemic obstructions or blockages. We all know that certain groups of people, because of race, ethnicity, age, socioeconomic status, religion, sexual and affectional orientation, gender, can face systemic obstacles and blockages to their goals. Blockages and obstacles can also just be random. They can just be bad luck, things that get in your way. But we've all been there of having a goal, a pathway blocked. And the natural human tendency, particularly for people who are prone to depression when they face an obstacle like this, is to kind of throw their hands up and give up and get stuck. Very often people will start to attack themselves. What's wrong with me? I'm a schlump. I'm no good. I'm never going to accomplish their goals. Give up and become stuck. And that's certainly where I see a lot of people when they come to me as a clinical psychologist. But I've noticed lately with the work with my undergrad students and even grad students, when they come to me for advising, this is often where they find themselves. But the research shows that for people who are particularly high in hope, that is, people who are in the habit of having these three conditions for hope to thrive set in their lives, don't get stuck here. Instead, they tend to take a long, hard, realistic look at the obstacle or the blockage. They don't paint a smiley face over it. They don't deny or distort it and act like it's not there. They take a long, hard look at what's happening, but then they don't stop there. They ask themselves the incredibly hopeful, forward-looking, and yet realistic question, and you'll have to watch the slide for this. They ask themselves, what now? What can I do now, given what's blocking me, to try to find an alternative pathway around it to still get to some version of my goal? And I'm not pretending that's easy. You might have to try many things, but trying and keeping trying often raises the probability of goal success, and also in the meantime, increases your felt sense of hope. And it turns out that this model of hope, goals, pathways, and agency, and then this persistence to find alternative pathways in the face of blockages is related to all kinds of positive outcomes in life. So I'm going to give you kind of a grand tour in 2 minutes or less of what we know from 30 plus years of research about hope. We'll see if I can do it. We know, for instance, that higher hope is related to goal achievement. We know this from longitudinal studies of undergraduates, where we bring them in, we have them name a bunch of goals in their life at the beginning of a semester, then we bring them in 3 months later at the end, and it turns out that people who had higher hope at the beginning are more likely to have accomplished their goals 3 months later. Also in undergrads, but also in grade school students, in high school students, and even in law students, we find that higher hope is related to better grades and lower dropout from school. Higher hope is related to lower depression and lower anxiety, and that's relevant to all of us. It's related to more of a sense of purpose and meaning in our lives. Higher hope also is related to better physical health. For instance, people who are higher in hope tend to exercise more regularly. They tend to eat a healthier diet. They tend to be non-drinkers and non-smokers. They tend to have lower body mass index. They tend to also have lower blood pressure. And people who are living with chronic pain conditions, actually it turns out that despite those chronic pain conditions, if they have higher hope, they tend to function better and cope with the pain better. And finally, really relevant to what we've been through the last 3 years is people with higher hope tend to say that they find some kind of growth in the midst of trauma and tragedy. So whether we like it or not, and it always shocks me to say, research shows that 80% of us, about 80% of us at some point in our lives will encounter a serious life-threatening trauma. And all of us will have tragedies in our life of one kind or another, including the losses of people we love. And the research shows that a certain percentage of people, it's actually the majority of people, after a period of emotional turmoil and pain that is inevitable following trauma and tragedy, and sometimes even during that period of emotional turmoil and pain, they say they find some kind of growth. They grow in some way. That can mean appreciating each day more. It can mean appreciating the gifts that we still have. It can mean deepening or widening in our spirituality or in our relationships with others. But regardless of what that growth is, it turns out that hope is a predictor of that growth. People with higher hope tend to do that more. Hope also, it turns out, is important for healthcare providers. So we all know that during the last 3 years, and some of you may work in healthcare, healthcare providers are burning out doctors and nurses at higher rates than ever before and are quitting the profession of medicine. And that is a crisis that I think our society has only begun to deal with. And one of the problems is that burnout and stress that they experience at work doesn't stay at work, right? It affects the rest of their life too. It lowers their overall quality and satisfaction with their lives. And I'm not going to go into this research in great detail, but we did a survey of 224 oncology professionals, doctors and nurses, and we found this relationship right here, that hope mediated the relationship between higher burnout and lower satisfaction with life. In plain English, what that means is that the stress and burnout that they were experiencing at work was actually eroding their hopefulness. It was lowering their hopefulness. And that is what ultimately was leading to lower satisfaction with life and lower general well-being. And that really gets to the idea that if we could do an intervention to nurture people's hopefulness, could that prevent job stress and burnout from interfering with our life and the satisfaction of our life more broadly? And I'll talk about intervention and some tips and tricks shortly. It turns out that hope is also important for patients. So here's an article that we published just this year in the journal Cancer, where we actually followed 500 patients with advanced cancers. These were people with really serious cancer, people who a doctor put in their chart note were likely to actually die of their cancer within the next few years. And we followed them for 50 months, for 4 years. And we were interested in whether their hope at the very beginning of the study, high hope, low hope, medium hope, would actually predict who would live and who would die. And here are the results. So along the bottom of this graph, you see time in months from 0 to 50. And along the left, you see cumulative survival. So this is literally the percentage of people that were alive at each point in the study. And I'm going to draw you 2 lines. The green line are people who started out the study with high hope, and the blue line are people who started out the study with low hope. And here's what we found. And as you can see, at every point during the study, except for one at the very end, people who started the study with high hope were more likely to still be alive than people who started out the study with low hope. And if you're curious about the actual difference here, the median length of life for people who started out the study with high hope was about 16 months, living with their very serious cancer. For people who started out with low hope, though, the median length of life was almost half that, only about 9 months. And by the way, this was after we statistically controlled for things like the severity of their disease. So this had nothing to do with the severity of their disease. This really seemed to be an effect of hope. So all of this leads me to the big, profound insight of the afternoon. Get ready for profundity. Hope is good, as if you needed me to tell you that. It's something we want to have. It's something we want the people we serve, students, clients to have. It's something we want our colleagues and organizations to have. Luckily, hope is not set in stone. It's not something you're just born with and you can't change. You can change it. And here's an article that we published in 2012, my colleague Diane Dreher and I, called "Can Hope Be Changed in 90 Minutes?" And I'll give you a preview. The answer is yes, it can. We developed a single session, one session, hope workshop, a hope intervention that is 90 minutes long, that can be delivered to groups of people, where essentially in 90 minutes, we teach people the basic skills for setting the conditions for hope to thrive in their lives. And we did a randomized clinical trial with undergraduate students who, as I'm sure you all know, working at a university, most of you, face a lot of burnout and distress. And what we found was, in comparison to a stress management workshop, and in comparison to no treatment, the people that went through our hope workshop were more likely to at the end of the study, to have higher hope, higher sense of meaning in life, lower distress, and a month later, were more likely to indicate that they had achieved a meaningful goal of their choosing, a goal they chose at the beginning of the study. Now, this workshop has now been used all over the world with lots of populations, including women with metastatic breast cancer, including physicians facing burnout, and others. Now, there is no way I can tell you everything about this workshop in the time we have left, but I do want to share with you one more thing, which is that we're now doing this via Zoom. This has been dragged kicking and screaming into the 21st century. We've even developed an app for that. I've partnered with the nonprofit organization Life's Door to develop the Hoptimize app, which we use in the context of the workshop. And like I said, I can't share with you the techniques of the workshop in the 8 or 10 minutes we have left. I kind of knew we were just not going to have time to get into depth with the techniques. But I do, knowing that all of you are coming from different professions, you do different things during your day, you have different strains and stresses in your life, what I thought I would do is close with a few practical tips and tricks for things that you can do in 2 or 3 minutes during your day, during whatever you're doing during your day, to help set the conditions for hope to thrive in your own lives, for your colleagues, for your organizations, and for the people that you serve. So let me talk about some of those in closing. Number one, don't be afraid to hope. When I was a little kid, I was given the terrible advice, don't get your hopes up. And I was given that by well-meaning adults. But that's terrible advice, because if you buy the model of hope that I've talked about today, then you know that hope is the engine that drives our goal pursuit. It's the engine that drives problem solving. It's the engine that drives happiness in our lives in some sense. And so not getting our hopes up, not allowing ourselves to hope is a really bad idea. I shudder to think what would happen for ourselves and for our world if none of us allowed ourselves to get our hopes up, to hope. In fact, I think we're seeing a little bit of that. I think, having lived through the last 3 years, we're sort of seeing now a crisis of hope where people are afraid to hope again. So I want to encourage you to keep the flame of hope lit in your own lives. Related to that, be a model for others. We can model hope. There's lots of research that shows that emotions and attitudes are contagious, negative and positive ones. And I suspect that that's also true for hope, although there isn't necessarily hard data on hope per se. And so what that means is that if we encounter others in our work life, in our family life, and we greet our interactions with cynicism, with pessimism, with hopelessness, that's going to tend to model that for others and impact their mental health as well. So be a model of hope. Be aware of where your hope falters. And if you're working with other people, you can help them to be aware of where their hope falters as well. Remember, there are these three components or conditions for hope to thrive: goals, pathways, and agency. And one of the things I really love about this model of hope is it takes hope out of the realm of pie in the sky, abstract thinking, and it makes it really concrete. And it says, we can set these three conditions in our lives. So when I'm feeling not so hopeful, I like to kind of step back and evaluate. Am I lacking in goals? Am I lacking in pathways? Am I lacking in agency? All three, two of them. So for instance, if you're lacking in goals, that's a time to think about, can you tweak any of your goals to make them more meaningful or more life-giving? Is there a new goal you can set in your lives, even a small one, that would be more meaningful? I think about a particular client that I had early in the pandemic. I'm a clinical psychologist. During lockdown, I was seeing her via Zoom, and she was telling me she felt hopeless and out of control. And I said, well, hey, humor me here. This might seem too simple, but can we take 15 minutes to think about a goal you might set in your life that might give you a sense of control back? And she is a quilter. She makes quilts. And so she decided to use her talents to set a goal to make masks. And this was at a time when there was a shortage of masks available. So over the next month or two, she made hundreds of masks and donated them to nonprofit organizations, community organizations. And just setting this one condition for Hope to Thrive, having the goal of making these masks, fueled her hope and really led to a decrease in her depression and her sense of despair. But maybe it's not goals that are lacking for you. Maybe it's pathways. And if that's the case, maybe it's time to take out a sheet of paper and do the really unromantic work of mapping out a goal, of saying, well, what are the steps I need to take to get to my goal? What's step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4? What are some obstacles that might stand in my way? And how might I get around those obstacles? What are some things I might at least try? We actually do this during our single session Hope workshop. We call it Hope Mapping. And it's simple and it's not romantic. We all know we should do it at times, and yet so many people don't. And finally, if you're lacking in agency, agency comes from many sources. For some people, it's about their physical self. So maybe you need a little more sleep. Maybe you need 5 minutes of deep breathing or relaxation or meditation during the day. Maybe you need to change what you eat a little bit. I don't know. Maybe you need a little exercise. For other people, agency, that energy, that motivation comes from their spirituality, from prayer, from going to church. Maybe that's helpful for you. For me, my agency often comes from the support of people I care about. So I often go to my friend Paula when I'm lacking in agency, and she can cheerlead me and give me some of her agency. But I love this idea that we can kind of take our hope temperature and ask ourselves, which of these is lacking? And then we can take really concrete steps to set those conditions in our lives. And then finally, even while we are allowing ourselves to hope and modeling hope for others and working on our hope, be honest with yourself and with others. True hope is grounded in reality. Now, I hope that's come across, that this model of hope is not pie in the sky, Pollyanna, positive, rainbows and kittens thinking. Real hope is grounded in reality. Remember that slide where I showed that little person being blocked by an obstacle? People who are hopeful don't ignore the obstacles and the problems in their life. They don't deny or distort them. They take a hard look at them, but then they ask that hopeful, realistic question, what now? What can I do, given what's going on, to try to move forward? I'm not pretending it's easy, but what I do know is that real hope can't thrive without being honest and realistic about what we're facing. So I want to just end with a challenge to all of you. In all of our dealings with ourselves, with the people that we serve, students, clients, whoever we work with our colleagues within our organizations, small things, small interactions, just like the ones I've just talked about, can create a culture of hope. So I want to challenge you as you hang up on this webinar in the next minute to think about one thing you can do today to plant one of those conditions for hope to thrive in your own life, for the people around you, or for your organization. I'm pretty sure if we can do a little of that each day, we can create a culture of hope for each other in our little corner of the universe. So thank you so much. If you want to ask questions, you want to contact me or just find out more, my website is right there. It's davidfeldmanphd.com. So please, you can contact me through that. You can also find out more about hope. Thank you so much for your attention. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much, Dr. Feltman. We really appreciate you being here and giving us that wonderful presentation. So thank you so much. And for all attendees, just letting you know the recording will be up on the website in the next day or so. And as you exit the webinar, you will be sent a program evaluation and knowledge check questions. And we kindly request that you take the 5 minutes or so to complete that, especially if you are looking to earn your Plan for Health points. And then an email will be sent out just a little later today with links to slides, the website, where you can contact Dr. Feltman. So with that, join us next week. We have Shannon Carter from Ohio State Extension, who is going to be presenting on hope in hard times. So we hope to see you all next week, and everyone have a great day.